Hey, I'm Pascal from Orangepixel and welcome to another video, and also to all the new subscribers. Welcome to the channel, because the channel has been growing pretty rapidly last couple of weeks, and we're not at the 10k subscribers yet, but we're there, and this is starting to become somewhat of a professional type thing almost, and lots of people joining, everybody just joining and running into what? Seriously, what? I just thought maybe with my business,
is that a residual
maybe I can help grow this into a proper business, this YouTube thing, that camera thing. You want to turn this YouTube thing into proper business. What I've been doing for the last 3 years, every Thursday, new video uploading as part of the whole game development Orangepixel company type. I think I can do a better job. Business, yes, maybe. Could you read this? What, you want me to read this? Why? Well, I don't. Business. Yeah, I know we rehearsed this part, and I would then read it, but I'm just wondering why. I'm just going off script here. I have no answer for this. Just read it, please. All right. His fault, not mine. His fault. Business. This video is sponsored by Game Carnival, hosted by Exola. Game Carnival, the virtual game industry event that launched last year, is coming back on May 11th and 12th. That's next week. In 2020, Game Carnival hosted thousands of industry attendees, 220 exhibitors, 5,000 meetings. This year you can expect all of that and more. A totally new state-of-the-art virtual experience now built on Gen XP's platform, advanced networking features so you can more easily connect with industry professionals, one-on-one virtual meeting rooms where you can build key relationships, plus get valuable insights from industry experts on not one but 2 stages of speakers. Game Carnival is shaping up to be the must-attend event for developers this year. It's free to attend and you only need a web browser to join, so be sure to sign up. Right, so that's it. That's all you, yeah, I'll send an invoice to them and that's fine. I'll invoice for it. I'll do research. You wrap it up. All right, yeah. Where did you get the residual outfit? Why don't I have residual merchandise? Why? And does this make me a professional YouTuber now? Or so many questions? I have no idea what just happened. Okay, intro, I guess. Working on new prototypes or new ideas for games is probably the best phase in game development ever. Just throw everything at it, hope it's fun and entertaining, and you can try so many things and there's so many challenges, and I really love it. And if you've been missing the previous videos, we started with a mock-up screenshot, which should be on the screen somewhere around me now. This is just done in a graphic program, GIMP in my case. I just try to create a screenshot of a game that doesn't exist. That's probably the best way to describe it. I can sometimes I just borrow graphics from older games, like the soldiers are from Snake Core, and everything else around it is pretty new or taken from other prototypes that never made it. Based on that mock-up screenshot thingy, we started working on some code, and last week we did the whole road, so the SWAT car driving in, and then you could enter the building, and we started working on the building and thin walls and all that stuff. And that's pretty much where we left off. So I think it's best now to show you where I'm currently at. I haven't done a day-by-day video last week. I know a lot of you loved it last week, so maybe for the coming week I'll be recording just steps during the week. It's different days because prototype stage can go pretty quickly. Just to prove that, here's where I am at now. So let's boot up the game and grab the controller, and here we go. To put it full screen. Of course, we had this whole drive-in animation already done. We now have these soldiers. I changed the look of them a little bit. They now have the same uniform, which, well, the word already defines it. It's uniform, so they look like a team now, with only their heads being different. We now have 4-direction animation going on, thanks to intern DMAC on Discord, or Dylan is his real name. He created the walking towards you and walking away from you animations based on the characters I did. And we now have that in. We can also move slower with controller. Of course, with keyboard that's going to be a little bit different, but with controller you can now actually, the further you push your stick, let me just show it like this. The further I push, the harder they walk, and the less I push, the slower they walk. Pretty much like every other game. It's not extremely interesting, but I think it was fun to implement. So anyway, let's breach the door. And the indoor buildings is where most of my week was spent creating this. And there's a lot going on here, and not everything is visual, so we're gonna talk about it. But first, let's talk about the visual stuff, because why not? That's the easiest thing to see. There's a lot going on here. To make this all look much better and prettier in the end, we're not gonna mix all these types of floors and walls in a building. That's just gonna look very messy, very just a lot of stuff going on, and we might actually change some patterns and details, because I usually don't like too much detail on floor tiles. It just it gets overwhelming. So I'm probably gonna clean this all up a bit and make it more like one color with just tiny details here and there. Same goes for all the walls. I just need to check if I can make certain walls look different than other areas. So bathroom tiles on that one, bedroom tiles, living room tiles, and this is hallway texture. And there are doors. I'll get to that in a minute. There are also characters. I'll get to those in a minute. But this is pretty much has been my week, spending my time in this apartment block. So if you've been on this channel for a while and have been following my videos and my other games, you'll know I love doing procedural generated stuff. And the mission here is to create these buildings out of procedural generated code. So, or at least code that generates the buildings. For that, the first thing I need to do is actually define what I need in those buildings. So that's all done manual. I now have code that creates a cube or a square. And in that square, we create smaller squares, and that creates a living room or an apartment or an area. Next phase is figure out how the computer can actually do that for us, so that we can create a larger variety of apartment buildings. Now I'm not there yet right now. This is all done by hand, and maybe that's the way to go, to just design living rooms and bedrooms, and then have the computer pick them at random and mix and match them and place furniture randomly in there, so that we still have a lot of variation, but that I also have some control over what a certain apartment will look like. So still a bunch of stuff to sort out. But I did a lot more than just the walls. I also added doors, which is pretty much a key thing for this game, because we're gonna be going through these doors, breaching these doors like this, and then we enter apartment buildings, and we can breach this door. And of course we can still say you two go over here and the other two go over here. Stand guard in the hallway while we breach this door and move in. So a lot of code was done to start working on that gameplay thing I had in mind, and we can breach doors from the side as well. One of the things that isn't in here and I want to try and create is we now have a team here and a team there, and I want them to be able to breach these doors at the same time, which would be a tactic. So these guys would have to know, all right, you're going to breach this one, we will breach this one automatically. And then you just press a button on this one and both doors be knocked over, and both areas will be attacked at the same time. A lot of stuff has to be done to make these characters do anything by themselves. So that's going to be a bit of a problem and a interesting challenge for me, making them behave on themselves. And last week I also talked about thin walls versus thick walls. Pretty much what you see, let me just open it up in GIMP or in my Paint program. These are the walls, and as you can see, the walls are 16 by 16 or 16 big, thick, and then either 16 high or 32 high. But the problem is that half of this tile is not a wall, and that's very difficult to explain to characters, because they are walking on a grid map of 16 by 16, and you now have to tell them that part of that wall is not actually a wall, because it doesn't start until 8 pixels into the wall. Slightly technical, but the solution was a lot simpler than I thought. Let me just run the game again, but in a debug mode, so that you can see what I did. And it's pretty clear and pretty simple. Here we go. All right, so here we have all the little white squares, and that's our collision map. So those are actual walls that the player can't move through. And the simple solution is that these walls are 8 by 8, while the visual wall is 16 by 16. It's pretty simple, and it doesn't require a lot of work either. So simply put, the characters just check for the white squares. If there's a white square, it's a wall, and if there's another white square, you can just keep on moving. These squares are part of this wall, but since this wall is in 3D and upwards, you can actually walk behind the wall. It will go to transparency a little bit, but this is where the base of the wall is, so that's like solid, and everything above it is just visually interesting, but not solid for the game, or not solid for the character. So this is a pretty simple solution. This dark bar is part of this whole wall tile, but this is the part that really should block the player. So we just have a different collision map compared to our tile map. And it's just so simple that it actually, it was a lot of fun to make. And it made it all possible to have thin walls everywhere. And I'm pretty pleased with it. So that's been pretty much most of my week working on these apartment buildings and figuring out what kind of graphics do we need to create a full apartment building. How do we do wall textures, floor textures, doors, and how do we do collision map. And all that's up and running now, and we can now start working on how to make the computer create apartment buildings. Besides that, I also went from 6 characters in last week's video to just 4 characters. 6 characters feels a bit overwhelming, having to control all of them, splitting it up into groups of 3 and then being able to split it up and then again. It's just a lot of characters to control, and it just feels a lot better to have 4 main characters, and maybe we'll create other characters that you can swap in and out or recruit or whatever, but 4 characters in the game is more than enough. And as I just mentioned, DMAC on Discord created the characters looking down and upwards, so we can now move in 4 directions. And on top of that, he has been working on the first couple of enemies. They're not doing a lot just yet, because right now for me it's very weird. Normally I do all these things myself, but I start doing them by the time I actually write code for them. And now I have somebody creating all these graphics, while I'm not ready yet to work on the code. So I did quickly drop in some code to make sure that we can see enemies in the game, just to check the idle animations and maybe the movements and stuff like that. But yeah, for now they're just very static, and we'll have to figure out what they'll do and how they move and where do they move. And it's a bit different for me to work like that, but now I'll have a bunch of characters ready to go as soon as I write some code for it. But that's also a good thing, so I'm not complaining, I'm just saying it's a bit weird. And that brings us to reading comments on last week's video. A lot of comments in just a short time. It's now not even 24 hours later, but like I said, the channel is growing, so so are the comments, and that's great. Keep them coming. Let's see if we can give some answers here and there. Great video, Pascal. Prototype is looking really nice. Thank you. The group control seemed very interesting indeed. Yeah, I still have to figure out if it actually works, because I can see some issues. So we'll have to somehow make these characters, when you're not controlling them, behave and be interesting enough to make the game interesting enough. So that's going to be the challenge, making the characters you don't control actually do useful things. But I'll figure it out, hopefully. Apogee's Rebirth-like trailer was epic. Awesome to see your game as part of it. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. A lot of nostalgia in there, but also some very cool new games coming from Apogee. And I already got a few, and I know a little bit more than you guys, but trust me, it's gonna be great. Disappointed that Orangepixel is not on iOS. It is on iOS. All my games, almost all my games are on iOS. You just can't search for Orangepixel. You'll have to search for the game name, because Apple is a bit crazy when it comes to companies and things and registrations, and it's all under my own name. But just search for a game, Space, Grunts, Heroes of Loot, Gunslugs, Meganoid, whatever, and you will be able to find them. Or go to the Orangepixel website, of course, and there you can click on games, select the game, and if you do it from an iPad or iPhone, you will be able to go to the iPhone or the App Store link automatically. So got you covered. You make it look so simple to make these games. Very cool development so far. Yeah, a lot of people commenting on how fast this prototype stage is going. That's part experience, I guess. I have a lot of experience creating games like this, but also there's not a lot here just yet. Right now it's characters running around on a screen with walls, and there's no game logic there. We're slowly going towards that phase, and then it becomes interesting, and updates will be going less fast, because then there's a lot of code happening and not so much visual stuff. So right now it's just a lot of visual stuff coming at you, a lot of new things being implemented, but we're not there yet. Just a heads up about Last of Us Part 2, no spoilers, is that you don't need to play most of it sneaky, the gameplay shines, but yeah, I actually like the sneaky part in the Last of Us games, just grabbing somebody from behind and then, you know, I love that part, but every now and then when I have a bunch of guys with guns at me, I like to run away. That's just probably my nature, but yeah. This is kind of content really enjoyed to watch. I mean, daily progress compressed into one video. Yeah, I'll try to do this more often because a prototype like this video has a lot of new stuff, and if I had split that up in days, you would have seen all the steps taken to get here. So I'll try to do that maybe for next week's video again. It's coming along so fast. I recently come back to vanilla Java to make my own game engine, so that's what I'm working on. Welcome back to Java, and although you could create games like this in any other language you want. And as explained, it looks like I'm doing a lot of stuff very quickly, and I probably am, but there's still a lot of game logic missing in here. So it's far from an actual playable game. Can you make a tutorial? I really want to make games and I don't want to use a game engine. I want to use libgdx. Please make tutorials. Yeah, sorry, I don't have time to do tutorials. Also, I don't think that tutorials for libgdx would reach a wide enough audience, or maybe it would be very good for libgdx users, but yeah, I'm not the tutorial kind of guy. I like to create games and I like to show you how I create games, so stick to the channel, but tutorials won't really happen. Great stuff, Pascal. I know the art is far from final, but I have to say that the indoors actually feels like you're on top of the building. It's sunny. Yeah, of course, this was just a mock-up. There's no light system indoors just yet. Probably one of the first things I'll be working on later today or in the coming days. So I'll show you next week, hopefully. There will be mood lights and setting the scene and everything. It will be much prettier than it is now. Quad splitting sounds like a great idea and your progress is amazing. Two things, the dead should have X eyes. Oh, like these cartoony crossy eyes. Yeah, that's not sure if you're gonna see that at the current resolution, but when someone is covered by a wall, for example, the outline should be drawn. I actually went for the transparency of the walls, but an outline, yeah, it might work, but right now the walls just go transparent if you're walking behind them, and I don't think you should be able to see inside buildings, so there's a lot of stuff that I need to figure out and sort out, but we'll get there. That the breach isn't about the door is the bug, it's a feature. Coolly guys don't use the door, they breach through the wall. Now that I think about it, you could make some walls breachable. Yeah, a breach above the door is not a debug. I mentioned debug code last week, but only the numbers above the soldiers were debug numbers and thingies. Breach is actually a command that every door will show you if you're there. You can breach it or you can't if it's locked or something. And breachable walls sounds very interesting, and it's very easy. It will still be a door just looking like a wall. So that might actually be a good idea to put in the game in some areas. Love this. Progress made between day 1 and 2 is impressive. You have a lot of code already done. Well, I stripped a lot. Most of the code you see in action right now is pretty new, just based on all the stuff I did in previous games. So I could borrow and copy paste. So yeah, okay, maybe I had a lot of code already done. Tip, when you split the squad or before, please add a way to give order like stay here, avoid. Yeah, all that stuff needs to be sorted. Like I mentioned, I want these characters, when you split up your group, the other group should be making sense in what they're doing. So just having them stand there is not going to be very cool or interesting. So they'll either move to another door and breach that at the same time, or they'll stand guard at corners or something. That's going to be very difficult and a lot of programming work, but that's kind of the challenge for this game, I guess. Your prototyping process is fascinating. Thanks for letting us in. It's really looking great. You're welcome. Great video. I love the start of a new project. Ideas whizzing around everywhere. I agree. It's just a lot of fun, and we can throw all these ideas at the game and hope it actually ends up with an interesting game. But for now, it's fun working on it and tinkering with it. That's it for the comments, and drop some comments on this video as well. I think this isn't a very long video, but I have a busy day planned ahead, and the mailman is delivering something cool that I'll show you pretty soon. So I'll have to do this in between everything, and hope it was still interesting enough. And next week I'll try to do a day-by-day video again, starting to record this afternoon, because I'm about to work on the light system for this game. Although I also be working on some residual stuff next week, because that's still something that's also going on. You might have forgotten about it, but I'm about to release residual in a couple of months from now, published by Apogee. Wishlisted, please check the description below, and more news coming on that game pretty soon as well. So thanks for watching, like, subscribe, see you next week. Bye. Not sure that would.